listening to the Midnight Highway Radio with your host, Sean Lonkert. So sit back, take a ride on the Midnight Highway. Where it may take you is not known. Keep an open mind, a mind for the possibility. What if? Now here's your host, Sean Lonkert.
Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you may be. I am Sean Lonkert, and you are listening to the Midnight Highway Radio. Okay guys, the waiting is over. Upon your demands, the Midnight Highway Radio has brought Crystal Sereda back on the show. It was only a week ago when I spoke to her husband, David Sereda. The topic was communication, faster than the speed of light. Crystal managed to make her way onto the show as she had a story to share. A story that was somehow interfered with. Pulsations, humming, or the complete lack of audio at times was present when Crystal spoke to me about Ashtar. Many of you had emailed me explaining why you thought Ashtar had actually interfered with the audio. Many of you have actually belittled me and belittled my show and marked it truly unprofessional. And many of you have also claimed to have heard EVPs mixed in with the audio of the show. But this is one thing all of you want. This is one thing all of you agree on. All of you demanded for Crystal's return, and God willing this will go well. Not only will you get to hear about the 3 visions Ashtar showed her, but there's been an update. Apparently, Ashtar returned to Crystal Sereda last night. Why? Does this have anything to do with my show and how it will be dictated? When we come back, Crystal Sereda, stay right where you are. You do not want to miss this show.
So clear through broken walls, that scream I hear, cry, little sister, come to your brother, Jamie, sister.
Guys and girls, welcome back to the show. You are listening to the Midnight Highway Radio. Tonight our guest is Crystal Sereda. Quickly though, I wanted to give an update that in June we will be going live, so we'll be taking phone calls and you guys and girls will actually be able to to listen in live during the show. So, enough waiting though. Let's get right to it with Crystal Sereda. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's just get this started, and I'm gonna welcome you to the show, Crystal.
Okay. Hi, thank you, Sean. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's upon demand, let me tell you that. Everybody has been emailing me and wanting Crystal Sereda to come back on the show, so here we are.
Great.
Round number 2. And I understand that Ashtar actually paid you a visit last night. Now, we're going to get into that later, but is that true?
Well, David, he paid David a visit.
Oh, he paid David a visit. Okay. Are you going to be able to elaborate on that later?
Sure, either me or him.
Okay. Either way would be fine. But let's talk a little bit about the audio of the last show. Some people claim to be hearing hums. Others were hearing pulsations. While other people were just hearing nothing at all. Yeah.
Well, what interests me is the pulses, because I've been hearing a deep humming sound, similar to the sound of the sun, but not a consistent pattern of pulses. Rather, they change. And as far as the humming, dropping down and then going higher, but in these kind of waves. And I've been hearing that ever since I start, well, really for some time, the last few months, I'd say. But more profoundly when David would use his wand in our room. And I believe that they're actually the ships, that it's the sound of the ships, because in the beginning when I would first hear it, that's when I would get contacted with messages from aliens or Ashtar.
Okay, now I know the last time we spoke, a lot of people didn't get to hear this, but apparently Ashtar had taken you to outer space and he had showed you 3 visions. Now we're going to get into that in a bit, but I want to go back a little further here. I want to go back to when you first met this entity by the name Ashtar.
Yes, well, actually, first he appeared to David in a dream with Tuella, who was, she was, a person here on Earth who channeled Ashtar, and then she passed. And her and Ashtar showed up to David in a dream, and he told me about it, and I had never heard of Ashtar at that time, which was shortly after we moved here to Sedona, maybe 3 to 4 years ago at the most. And then we started talking about what Ashtar is, and he was trying to remember what he could recall about Ashtar, because he had never mentioned him before, and he didn't know that much about him, but he did recall the whole evacuation part of Ashtar, where they would apparently beam people up in these like kind of tunnels of white light. So we were interested in that so much that we were talking about it to a friend, and a friend lent us his book, which was a mysterious purple book, and it was all about, channels about Ashtar, channel material. And so we were searching through the book the night afterwards for the section that was all about the evacuation, because David had had a similar experience with that in his past, where his body was taken through these different octaves of sound and energy, and his atoms were materializing, and he told his roommate that he wasn't sure if he was going to be there the next day. But he didn't equate that to Ashtar at the time. It wasn't until later that someone told him, oh, that sounds like, an Ashtar kind of evacuation kind of thing. So we were looking, really trying to find for a long time this page on that, and we couldn't find it, and we went to sleep. And that night, David thought I had gone to the bathroom, because, he sees spirits and all sorts of different beings with his eyes open that are not in our dimension. And he thought he had seen me go to the bathroom, and then he realized I was sleeping right next to him, and there was a woman right beside the bed coming from the bathroom, and he realized that she had a book, well, I don't know if he even realized at the time that it was a book, but it was, that shape. And he went back to sleep, because they just kind of wake him up, and he opens his eyes. Just their presence wakes him up, and then he sees them, and then away, and he goes back to sleep. So I didn't know this had happened, but I woke up, and for some reason he said, "What did you dream?" Like he knew it was going to be important, because he knows that I have had, dreams were precognitive type of dreams or visions. And I said, "I don't know. I just know the number 57 is important." And I didn't equate it to a book, but we both got the message, but different parts of the message, and he realized from his vision of her holding that was a book that she was holding, and he's like, "Page 57." So we go to page 57, and it's the exact page that explains the instructions on the evacuation and when the beams of white light come.
Now, let me ask you this. What does Ashtar look like? Because there's a lot of photographs circling around the internet, and there's blonde hair, some have it brown. I mean, what's he look like?
Well, David's the only one who's actually seen him. Since I was a little girl, I've always been aware of the presence of spirits, but I've always prayed my whole life not to see them because I was scared.
Right.
So I've never actually seen Ashtar. I've just felt his presence or heard his voice. So David, though, had a dream last night. Yeah, it was a dream, actually. He didn't see him physically this time. It was a dream last night where he said his hair was kind of gray blonde.
Okay.
He wasn't sure at the time that it was Ashtar until he put it together, pieced it together with what the message was when he woke up. And he had this, like, white robe. In the past, he's had different attire when David had seen him, but last night that was the case.
So, all right, when you actually have these experiences with Ashtar, you don't really see him, but you really hear him, though, correct?
Yes, I hear him, and the only reason I know that it's him is because after David had that experience and then the book was introduced to us, I started being concerned because when we read the page about the evacuation, it was talking about how you really, once you walk into the white light, the beams of light, that they basically carry your physical body up on the shift through, that you need to make sure you're not in any lower energy or vibrations, meaning no fear.
Right. Now, it is so strange because even now as you talk, you were coming through very clear, but then it just starts kind of cutting out, and that's kind of how it began. So far it's all right, but last time this is how it began, so we'll have to see how this goes. Hopefully we can actually get through this time, right?
Wow, yeah, and that didn't happen with David before I came on, right?
No, it didn't. It was only when you come on. I don't know if there's some kind of energy coming from you, or I mean, I would have said that you're in Sedona. There's a lot of mystical stuff taking place out there, as we all know, but I was speaking with David, and it was going fine until Crystal comes on. Then it all goes downhill. No.
Oh, I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not sure what the forces are behind that.
Right. Well, right now you sound great, so I guess we're going to continue. Where does Ashtar come from? Does he ever say any... Oh, well, you know what? Let me pause right there. Before I ask you where he comes from, I was asking you about his voice. And I'm sure you're familiar with the 1977 when he took over the network, the TV network, as we spoke about last time, correct?
Right.
Okay. Now, does his voice sound the same like that? Well, and why I'm asking this is, do you believe that 1977 incident to be authentic? I mean, is that what Ashtar sounded like when you actually hear it?
I'm sorry. I'm actually not familiar with that. I didn't hear that myself. I mean, I've heard of it, but I didn't actually hear that.
It was a very low, actually scary voice, to be honest with you.
Well, the voice that I have heard is, and I asked David to verify what he heard last night with the voice, and he verified some of the same traits of the voice that I described, which is, not, it's a deep voice, but not especially deep. It's very, like, even toned, but, there's body there. It's grounded. It's a grounded voice, mature, but not old or not young. It's just very, like, even-toned voice that it has a professionalism to it because it's just a very matter-of-fact voice. But there's no, like, exuding of warmth or love, but there's no, when you hear the voice, there's no emptiness either. There's a nice presence. It's not something scary at all that I've experienced.
Now, does he ever mention where he comes from? I know it's probably going to be something interdimensional, but does he ever describe a world or a planet?
Well, that's interesting because it's something that we're just asking now through, for instance, the Palladian transmitter that we use, that David invented. We had asked that most recently after the show, actually, the last show that David did. And we had a problem with some of the technology, and we blew some things, so we had to get another part, and we have to do it all over again. So only part of the message got out, but it was very clear that Ashtar was responding to us within that Pleiadian transmission, which means he is connected to them. Whether or not he is Palladian is not clear to us yet. Again, we have to do it over and get more clarity on the answers. There's also some interference here, which was verified with, forces of our Earth beyond our ability to deal with that are trying to interfere with this process of communicating through the technology and also even telepathically in the astral plane. So there's a little bit of that challenge there, but we think we can get past that once we go through the, getting it all fixed up again. It was just a little too much energy that David was putting through it. But I'm not positive if he's Palladian, but I know that he is working with the Palladians, and again, he did respond to our message that we specifically aim out to the Palladian star system. So he is tied into them in some way. I'm sure of that.
Now, when you're getting messages from, these other worlds, what's it sound like? I mean, are you getting pulsations? Are you getting, is it voices you guys are recording? What exactly is taking place?
No, it's telepathic messages, but they're so consistent with when we use the Palladian transmission device, and then the following days, like the day afterwards. One time, David asked information about the pole shift, and he got an email the next morning from a man who said he's had experiences with the Palladians from his past, and they gave him a whole vision of the pole shift and what was going to happen, and they told him that morning to contact David and tell him. So they're using more ways than just telepathic messages. Like when I say telepathic, I mean through dream or vision states.
Right.
But that's how it started, and now they're using a lot of other forms, and maybe that's because there are some challenges that we're faced with being blocked, in the astral plane. But at the same time, it works just as well. It works just as efficiently because David, for instance, one of the answers to our questions he received in a clear vision, like with his eyes open, and that was that night of the transmission.
Now, is this a gift that you guys possess? I mean, I've heard of many different channelers out there. One of the infamous Blossom Goodchild, I'm sure you've heard of her. Can anybody actually channel and talk to this entity, or any entity for that matter?
Oh yes, I believe there, as the people claim, and it can be tricky because you don't really know who to trust, and channelers in particular, the way they interpret things, could be different from the whole truth. But as far as personalizing somebody seeking the truth, I believe that us as individuals can always ask for guidance in a particular direction, whether it be with a spiritual being or God or whomever. But sometimes it's easier to access beings who are a little bit more ahead of us, such as good aliens, and if you know their name, to specifically ask for guidance from them, because they're just more accessible than perhaps higher figures such as Jesus Christ or others. It's not necessarily true. I think it depends on the individual and who they resonate with, but the main thing is to ask and to start a dialogue and to pray, and then that person's individual abilities can start to be revealed, because everybody has a gift on that level to be able to either hear, see, sense, or get messages from a variety of different ways. You just kind of have to tap into it. But I believe that it's important to try to do this on your own as an individual first, and to continue doing it rather than just rely on other people.
Now, when you mentioned good aliens, are there bad ones out there as well? Because, I mean, you got to think back to the infamous alien graves and the crazy abductions and wild experiments going back to Travis Walton. Do you know any of the negative aliens? Have you ever heard of those?
The naked aliens?
Oh, no, not naked.
Sorry, what did you say?
Negative.
Oh, negative, yeah. Yes, I've had recently being a year or so ago, just a little bit of knowledge about the Anunnaki, and they scared me with some experiences regarding our baby. So I felt like I've been protected most of my life, mainly because I've always prayed to be protected from negative, aliens or spirits, whatever you want to say. But at an early age, I did have an experience when I met and befriended my first ufologist when I was 18, and during the course of our friendship and what we were diving into on different subject matters with aliens and propulsion, I did meet an alien in person that didn't look like an alien. It would look like a person, but it was a very scary experience because of the energy that was coming from this person. And my ufologist friend explained that, well, they're making sure that you're not going to, be a problem with the information that you now know. So I would always pray for protection on that level, and therefore it's never interested me to really go look deep into that, because I already know that there's that world out there, and that there's, just as there's negative corruption here on Earth with us humans, of course there would be, out there with lower energy aliens. But it's not something that interests me, nor is it something that I really want to go deep into. But from time to time, I do get privy to certain things.
Now, when you mentioned the Anunnaki, and you mentioned your baby, and there was a negative feeling, is that too personal to ask what was going on? I mean, what gave you the negative feeling about that?
Well, they were consistent dreams of them trying to take our baby.
Ah, okay, that's some pretty scary stuff.
Yes, but I'm sure that has been, they've been blocked now.
Okay, now, and I heard you mention Jesus, and how do you think all of this ties into to Christianity? Now, I'm not going to go out here and say, that it's anti-Christian or anything. I'm just the host. I have my views. You guys have yours, but there are a lot of people that are going to email me and are going to be like, oh, this. She's talking about an invasion. It kind of sounds like Heaven's Gate cult, something like that.
Oh, no, when I was talking about Ashtar and the evacuation, it's specifically about, when things are so bad here with Earth changes or whatever, us as humans destroying everything with...
Right. I mean, obviously, we're not going to be committing suicide from what you're saying. I mean, I'm just saying this is the emails that are going to fill up, I guarantee it. And I just wanted to know, it's a wild topic that we're talking about here, and of course, you're interested in this kind of stuff. David is, I am, and probably everybody listening to this show right now are as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, what is your normal life like? I mean, walking around...
Normal life is not normal.
Well, try to elaborate a little bit on what is it like in the daily life of Crystal and David Sereda? Because I'm sure a lot of people out there are curious about that. Do you guys get approached by people? Do you get belittled by people? Praised by people? What's it like being a Sereda?
Oh, sure. We're so busy. Actually, we're not really out there socially at this time. With our baby and with our businesses and the pendants people are really continuing to want. So it's a lot of care to take care of everything. But sure, when David lectures or does workshops or meets other people, there's always people who may be negative about certain things, but most of the time there's just really great feedback and positive energy coming back. But, even like a few years ago, there was, I don't even know if it's still there, but there was a website that this man created that was like, David Sereda, Menace to Society, Stop David Sereda.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I think it's just, certain people just are not, it's too scary for them. They're in too much fear to be able to entertain these concepts, and David is so inventive in so many ways, and radically changing even concepts in physics, that a lot of skepticism, because people are so not used to changing, especially radical change, and that's what we're dealing with right now. We're going through radical change, so we have to change, but still there's a lot of people who fight and resist, and it's important just to entertain things, though, and to try to see where the truth lies by being open and remaining open without judging or coming to conclusions before you have all the facts.
Well, I have to go out on a limb here when describing David. I mean, it was years ago when I first discovered him on YouTube, actually. I just typed in aliens, UFOs, I was always interested in that topic, and there's like 1,000 videos of the same guy doing different lectures and talking about tether experiments, and to me, I would compare him to like an Einstein. Like I say to the people that ask me about him, he's a true scientist. That's the way I look at it. But
yeah, there's one woman who was writing like a book about all the people she thinks reincarnated now from famous people from the past, and she thinks that David is a reincarnation of Max Planck.
Max Planck, I'm unfamiliar with that name.
He was alongside Einstein in physics.
Oh, okay. And another thing I did want to touch base on here is, last time we spoke, I did mention that Ashtar is mentioned in the Holy Bible, and you weren't aware of that. Correct?
Right, yeah, I was not.
I want to read something to you real quick, and this is where a lot of Christians come out and think that there might be a deception going on here, and I'm not going to say that there is. I just do the show. It's actually in Judges, and you could always check this for yourself. It's in chapter 10, and it's actually verse 6, and this is what it says. It says, "And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and they served Balaam and Ashtaroth." And it says, "And the gods of Syria, and the gods of Zidon, and the gods of Moab, and the gods of the children of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines, and forsook the Lord, and served not him." And it says in verse 7, "And the anger of the Lord was highest against Israel." And you could see right there, I'm not going to read, but it's in there, Judges chapter 10, verse 6. That's why when the name Ashtar comes up, a lot of people say, wow, you know what, they're talking about evacuating Earth at a point to protect us. And I understand that, that's a good thing. But they're thinking that might actually be a rapture scenario.
Oh, sure. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think they're one and the same thing. If an evacuation is just another term for people who are not, understanding of the Christian prophecies, that it's another word for the rapture. So, yeah, I mean, because we don't know for certain that when it's time for a rapture, that, I mean, of course, Christians are certain that Jesus Christ will come, like literally, but maybe Jesus was saying that he will come down and, bring forward the promise that he made through the assistance of other beings that he holds with, his trust to carry out his promise and his word, because maybe it's too, like David explained in the last show, maybe it's too hard for Jesus to physically come down here when it failed the last time as far as us being able to embrace him and really, really understand what his message was. So maybe for the modern day people, Jesus understands that the more people would be able to be saved through the guidance, the assistance of friendly aliens who come and, basically take you to a safety place while the earth changes are occurring. I don't know. It's just what I think that could be a truth, but I do know for certain that the ships are ready for helping us when we need to, and that they are part of Jesus' plan. Maybe Jesus will come as well, either before or after, but I know that the ships in Ashtar are trying to carry out that same message.
Now, where are these ships right now? I mean, are they in our atmosphere? Are they, like, invisible? Like, you think back to the movie Signs, and a bird's flying, and all of a sudden it just drops from the sky because it hit an object that was there, but yet we couldn't see it. Where are these ships?
Well, we've been seeing the ships in cloud formations really frequently now here, like near our home and in Flagstaff in Sedona. And it's like obvious, cloud-shaped UFOs. So they're obviously using the clouds as a kind of cloak. And we think that they're around here at least a lot right now, like consistently. And especially with me hearing the hum a lot and getting messages.
That's what I want to get into right now, is the humming. We heard it on the show. You're hearing it. If I remember right in the email, David said that he wasn't hearing it, but
right, he can't hear it. I always say, "Can you hear that? No, do you hear it now?" And he's like, "No, he just can't hear it."
Is there a specific time that you're hearing it, or is it just all the time?
Well, sometimes in the day, but usually at night. And I don't know if that has to do with the ships and when they're here more, or if it has more to do with in the daytime, usually I'm just like so busy with, work and the baby that I'm not tuned in, or I can't hear it because there's so much noise going on around me. But it's really clear at night. Not every night, though. But it started out where I would only hear it when the ships were here, and I knew the ships were here because I would have dreams of them coming to me and telling me stuff. And then I didn't even know the ships were there, but David would then say, "Oh, well, I see them," or whatever. I took pictures,
So does he have photos of these ships?
He has some photos of the cloud-shaped ships. Yeah, some of them he posted on Facebook.
I'll have to check those out.
He might have something more recently. I'm not sure.
Now, when you're talking about hummings and all that, you can't deny it. It's been in the news. Mysterious booms in Wisconsin. Do you think this has anything to do with that? I know you're talking about ships, but is there something big going on here? Because I've done a lot of research on this, and I was actually going to do a video of what I've documented, but I've come across this one video, so I just pretty much linked it to a short clip that I did. And this guy, from what he's saying, it's very alarming. It almost appears that Yellowstone is extremely active right now, and there may be an eruption. I mean, this might tie into the evacuation. So let's get into that. What are they saying about the evacuations? And well, actually, let's stop right there for a minute. Back whenever we were interviewing you before, you had the 3 visions that were shown to you. Let's get into those, and then let's get into the evacuations. Why don't you?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's go back to that, because a lot of people really wanted to hear what you had to say, and God willing, the audio goes good. Right now it's going great, just to let you know. So, bring us back. 3 visions. What happened?
Okay, well, what I describe as a vision is, for me, separated from my usual dreams. I have a lot of dreams where I can get, kind of precognitive type of events occurring, but every now and then I get what I call a vision, where my dream stops and I'm still in that state, like I didn't wake up and get out of bed, but I'm in a slightly altered state because my dream was interrupted, and then I'm like, it's all different, and I'm like what I call teleported somewhere else, and then I'm shown something, or a voice tells me something, and that's what I call the vision, because it separates from my dreams. My dreams just get interrupted, and every now and then I get those, which means there's more focus on it, there's more importance on it, because I can get a lot of little, psychic, intuitive things through regular dreams on a regular basis. But when the vision happens, it's more serious. So basically, that's what happened. I was dreaming, and even in the dream, it kind of led up to it, because in the dream, I was looking for something, searching everywhere for something important that was going to save the world. And I couldn't find it. I was like looking underneath desks, and there was a presence of a male superior behind me, like kind of overseeing things. And then all of a sudden, like, it all got interrupted. It stopped. The character that I was, like, disappeared, and it wasn't the same scenario anymore. And I was in space, and I was fully aware, like consciously aware, that I was not dreaming anymore, because in the dream I was like this character, and it wasn't really like Crystal Sereda. So I was then taken to space, and I was aware that I was Crystal, and I was in space, and I heard a voice say, "Do you see it?" And all of a sudden I could see very clearly in front of me this horizontal line of like darker space energy across from me, and it was like going to the far corners, like from my peripheral, kind of it wasn't linear, it was like kind of circular. And then right in front of me there are 3 markers. One marker directly in front of me, then another marker slightly afterwards, like close afterwards, and then there was a longer space, and the final 3rd marker more towards the right. So reading from left to right, I would assume the first marker, would be the one right in front of me. But anyway, so I said yes, but I don't know how to put it in a linear time frame that applies to Earth. And so then it was the voice, and like I described before, this male voice that was very matter-of-fact, very confident, strong but not overbearing. And he said 6 months from now, or never. And there was a pause after he said, between now or never. And during the time that when he said or never, it was like kind of like playing on now or never. It was a little bit humorous. And I could sense the humor more than his voice related. It was more of an energetic humor. And so because of that, it made me doubt the validity of it being 100%, this will happen. And he must have read my mind telepathically, like right away, because right after I had that thought, he said very loudly, it will happen. And that triggered me to realize, okay, this is for real. I better wake up, write this down, figure it out, And so I snapped myself out of it, woke up, and told David and did the calculation of what 6 months from then would be, which would take us to this year of July. And if you go right down to it, it happened at 11 p.m. on the 10th, so it would be July 10th, 11 p.m. But I don't think it's going to be that specific. It's probably, approximately July 11th, in or around there. But the reason why I knew that was Ashtar, which I wasn't aware of during the vision, is because then I recalled it was during Christmas time that I was praying to Ashtar and to Jesus, if I'm supposed to, because I had the pole shift dream before, and we've been getting these messages about the big tsunami coming to the California coast, and I was saying, what's the point of us knowing this if we don't have an approximate date to give people so that we can get them to safety, or so that they can get themselves to safety? What's the point in us being, having this information? Otherwise, I need an approximate date, and I was really serious about this. And so then when I was shown that, I knew that the first marker would mean the tsunami.
So when you're saying the tsunami, is that the July 10th at around 11 p.m. or 11 a.m.?
It was 11 p.m.
p.m.
So
okay,
if you want to be he said 6 months from now, and at that point it would be, July 10th, 11 p.m., but I don't think he's going to be to the hour like that. It's just approximately July 11th.
Now, do you think this would be triggered by the tsunami? Do you think it would be triggered by an earthquake, or?
Yes, definitely.
Now, how big of a magnitude do you think we're talking here?
Well, that's what's tricky, because
we talking Japan, Indonesia?
Well, no. The thing is when I got the pole shift dream, and also the consistent dream that David and others have had with the huge tsunami, we're talking about massive. We're talking about wiping out in my vision with the pole shift, it went all the way up to the Prescott Mountains. But I don't know that will happen right away. There may be several precursor tsunamis that aren't as bad first, before it just totally gets destroyed over there.
So, these three events that you're talking about, do you believe that these are the three main events that are actually going to tie into an alien evacuation?
That's what I'm trying to gain clarity on now. All I know is that 6 months from now, the first event will happen, and I believe that is the tsunami.
Now, do you believe 110% that this will take place? Because I know you said that he kind of riddled a little bit that it wouldn't, but then you said that he said it will.
Like now or never.
Right, yeah, now or never. But he said it will. Because a lot of people that make dates comes back to haunt them.
Yeah, I know, but
you got to think about the Harold camping scenario here.
Yeah, all I can do is relay what, the information that I was given, because it's not something personal that I calculated, or I'm trying to decode something. It's not like that. It's just I heard a clear voice say 6 months from now it will happen.
Now, what would you think if nothing does happen? What would your opinion change of Ashtar, or would you just believe that you interpreted it wrong?
No, it's really tricky because I don't think that there was any level of interpretation to get wrong here. It wouldn't be an interpretation issue. But the only thing that is tricky here on Earth and in communication with other beings is that there's a percentage of change that we can create based on radically changing our thoughts, our projections, our feelings, our actions. And so there is a degree, even though it may be a small chance, that we can change things. It's not small if enough people would get together and do it together as a big group. But when I say small, I mean that we haven't been able to wake up yet. And the way things are just domino effect, going with these, massive events unfolding, both geologically and also, as a society, as a humanity, I just don't have that much hope that we're really going to be able to get out of this one. I think there has to be a rapture with the events that are unfolding and possible nuclear war and everything else. So my main thing that I want to do is try to prepare people, as many people as they can, because it's something that I've only recently had tools of understanding to know specifically what to do. Like, for instance, when the beams of white light come, instead of people getting scared, they need to know to be really just let go of their fear and trust that, this is a high presence of Jesus or God, asking these nice friends of ours to help us to get our bodies to a safe place. And I think that, the more that people can entertain that ahead of time, then the more comfortable they will be and the better chance they will have to, move on and create, because the ultimate goal is to create a new earth where we have different standards and different morals, and we have the ability to flourish rather than take life from our planet and from our species and, from nature.
Does our government know about these ships up there?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
What do you think they're going to do whenever there's this massive evacuation? And people are going to freak out. They're going to run from them, and some people are going to be like you, and they would go on the ships.
Well, I think at that point, when it becomes like taking thousands and thousands of people, at that point they won't be able to do anything, because I think we won't have any technology working. Nothing will be working at that point. We won't have power. We won't have, the ability to, our government won't have the ability to say, no, don't go there. They'll just be down in their safe havens, wherever they created their, little safety places.
Where the global elite will go, but not the average Joes.
Yeah, which, isn't really a good place to go anyway, because the earth underground is not stable. But I think that right now it's hard to have contact and have in-person communication with them, because everything's up and running. But at that point, I don't think that will be an issue.
Does the word Elijah, or Elijah, or however you pronounce it, does that ring a bell to you?
Elijah, yeah.
Elijah, okay, well, he's all over the internet. He claims to be, what, a Pleiadian?
Oh, you mean Elijah, like a person nowadays. Not familiar with a person who's alive right now.
Yeah, this I believe it goes by the name on YouTube, Elijah 777, something like that. You'll have to look into that. He actually claims to be a Pleiadian, and he's on the Earth right now, and he's pretty much saying the exact same thing that you're saying.
He is, really?
Yeah, it's actually really bizarre. He's got a lot of followers. It's all about love and light and letting go of what we are aware of right now. That's pretty much what he's preaching.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say, it has a lot to do with presence. People who are afraid of, getting taken aboard a bad alien ship, or even our own, twisted humans that may, fake something and try to bring us up to enslave us. I don't know. There's that whole theory going on out there. People who are afraid of getting on the wrong ship, I would just say, the main thing is that it's a bright white light. That's not like some dim or blue light, like that it was clear that it's supposed to be white. And also the presence, like, the more you can not in fear, the more you can stay relaxed and calm, then the more you'll be able to intuitively feel a presence to see if that presence has good intentions or bad intentions.
See, Crystal, I'm a classic example of the guy the guy or girl that would be living in fear of something like that would take place.
I know, it's so hard. I mean, of course, so many would.
Yeah, it's like you go right or you go left. You've been taught all your life that this is the way it is, and then, a major event like this takes place, and it's like, wow, what about if they're right and I don't go? I'm screwed. But what about if the Bible is preaching that this is demonic in nature, and I go, and then I'm screwed there? I mean, it's like, it's so hard.
What you can do, though, is if you're familiar with a particular guide, a guardian angel, or a particular, like, avatar or God, just praying to God or Jesus or Archangel Michael, you can ask them during that time, or even ahead of time, to guidance, to make it clear to you that this is safe, that you will be getting on the light ship, the light ship, not the dark ship. And then in the moment when it happens, you can again ask, for instance, Archangel. When I was afraid about being able to withstand the electricity that your body goes through when you get beamed up through the white beam of light to the ship, because it explained it in detail in the book, and I was like, well, how do I not be in fear? That was what I was afraid of. So I've been preparing these last few years, but what I realized is that I could ask for a preparation of a kind of activation, which is what I did. I started praying to Ashtar right away, please give me an activation preparation for what it would feel like to go into the light beam. And I had one. And during the process, I wasn't even aware, because it was in that in-between state again, where I wasn't fully conscious, but I wasn't aware that it was an Ashtar experience. I wasn't aware that it was like the beam of light that I was being prepared for. But what had happened was the light came on me, and I had this like deep pulsing electrical feeling through my whole body, but it didn't hurt. It was just strong and tiny little pulses, like really fast. You know, they're high frequency because they're tiny. They're not like boom, 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 boom. They're like like, and I could feel it through my whole body. And just because of you know, my prior years with David and him sharing past experiences with me that he had about how you really gotta let go and not be in fear, because a lot of times when you are going to be shown something amazing, something beautiful, and something special of, you know, beyond our experience here on earth, that you just have to trust. For some reason, you know, God and angels, they don't, most of the time they don't come and tell you, don't worry, I'm the angel of so-and-so, and I'm going to take you here, I'm going to show you this. They don't introduce themselves like that, so you just have to trust, and you just have to let go. And he had kind of instilled that in my mind so that it got into my subconscious, so when this was happening, I just was able to let go, and I told myself, okay, just trust, just let go and be calm. And so I was being partial the whole time it was happening. It was going on for quite a while, and then it was going on for so long that I started to become aware consciously that I could be hurting my tongue, because the energy was so strong that I could feel. I was laying down on my bed, I could feel like my tongue going straight up towards the ceiling, and I was afraid that the tiny pulses of electricity wherein my tooth would rub against my tongue might be making my tongue bleed. So I just said, I called on whenever I was unsure at that time, because it was going on for a long time, I just want to make sure this is a good thing and not a bad thing. I called on Archangel Michael. I said, Archangel Michael, show me that this is okay. Right away, I felt these wings envelop me, and for the first time, I felt Archangel Michael's energy, because I've felt my own personal guide's energy. They all have different energies, but this was the first time I could feel an archangel's energy. And right when he enveloped me with his wings, the pulses intensified, and that's when I knew that was like his stamp of approval. Don't worry, because otherwise he would have had them cease. They would have stopped if it wasn't good. And then I just completely let go. And when I opened my eyes after that experience, at that time I was really intense in a lot of fibromyalgia pain. I had no pain for like 2 hours, just lying there in my bed, and I was like just so ecstatic with how great my body felt. I felt completely rejuvenated, like all the cells in my body were rejuvenated, and I just felt like grounded and uplifted at the same time. And it was a really amazing experience, and I realized that I didn't have anything to fear, that I was prepared for what it felt like, so it's not fearing the unknown, because I already had that experience now, and I knew I could handle it. So that's what I would encourage anybody who is fearful of, you know, what it's going to be like, and if they're going to be able to do that without being in fear. Ask for an activation.
Now, Crystal, we're in the year 2012. UFO sightings are occurring at alarming rates. All these earth changes are taking place. The Mayans claim that on December 21st, 2012, this year, the world as we know it will come to an end. Now, there's many different interpretations as to come to an end. Some believe that it's going to be a change in consciousness, while others actually believe there might be a pole shift or something like that. Do you think there's any coincidence in what's taking place right now, whether it be booms in Wisconsin, 80 degrees for a week straight in March in the northern states of the United States? Is there a coincidence of all the UFO sightings? Is something going on here? I mean, is 2012 bold? Is it standing out?
Oh, definitely. I think that, you know, it's already started, and it's just going at a faster rate the more we go into the year. And it's possible that, you know, it could be even years from past 2012 But I wouldn't be surprised if it really all changed, radically changed, meaning destruction before the better and the new can come in 2012, or at the end of 2012. I mean, I'm part Mayan, and
Oh, really?
yeah, and I
Oh,
think
that's an interesting fact.
I think that's probably part of why I get these dreams. And David was actually shown by a childlike angel 3 times who came to him and told him, be ready. And I helped him with calculating a specific date, and we got October 29th, 2011. And at that time, we weren't aware that the head and Mayan elders date was October 28th, 2011, where, it would begin the new cycle. So according to that calendar, we've already begun a new cycle, but the total, destructional change will be more on the mainstream date of what you're saying. So we'll see about that. But the main thing is to be prepared for that, because, in the interim, even way before that, I think people should get prepared with all that they can as far as survival means, and water and food, of course, and everything else. And it all ties into, what Jesus said as well, and there's so many synchronicities in all these different cultures and their prophecies, and you can't ignore when you link the consistency between the different religions and cultures that are all saying the same thing.
Now, Crystal, do you have any books out, or are you working on any projects currently? Or do you have a website?
No, I mean, the website that I have with David is, lightstreamtechnologies.com for the jewelry, and the jewelry, the pendants, they help to raise your voltage, your energy, your bioelectricity. And right now I'm trying to help myself in addition to that with raising my voltage even more with minerals, and good minerals, and potassium, calcium, magnesium, and I encourage everyone to do that, because that's also part of having their body equipped to withstand a higher frequency. So, all the healthy stuff that people can do is important right now, and including, the jewelry that assists with raising your voltage at least a few times.
Now, we're going to be ending the show, but I always like to do this at the end. Is there anything that you would like to say to anybody out there listening right now that might have a question or be thinking about this topic? If you were to say anything to them, what would it be?
I would say get equipped both mentally and emotionally with being prepared with what you want to do. Do you want to go aboard a ship and experience something amazing, and then be a part of the new earth and the new world, come back here and start fresh? Is that what you want, or would you rather just pass on and try for heaven, or being reincarnated? Make decisions now. See what's comfortable to you now, and be prepared, mentally and emotionally. And, don't sweat the small stuff right now, because there's so many big things happening right now, whether you're aware of it or not, because so many of us are tied into our own lives and our own survival. Just know that there's none of the little stuff counts right now. Just don't sweat the small stuff, and be prepared on all levels. Get your family prepared, even physically, with what they need, with food and water and survival stuff.
All right, Crystal, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and I wanted to let you know the audio came through perfect, so I don't think we're going to have any complaints this time.
Great. Well, thank you for giving me that opportunity.
I really appreciate you coming on. It's been an honor.
Okay, great. Well, take care.
Hey, you take care too. Alright, good night.
Good night.